the Israelis are currently doing is playing to the end game of this conflict in Gaza. The conflict goals were to remove Hamas, the terrorist entity that, of course, provoked the whole conflict with an attack on October the 7th that, obviously targeted Israeli civilians and which led to this whole conflict. And it will end when Hamas control is removed from Gaza. Rafah is the last place, of course, the last redoubt where Hamas has its forces in Gaza. And as a result, in order to complete its mission, Israel has to go in. It has to go in very carefully, though. It can't go in just with all guns blazing because of the civilian situation. So what you're seeing is a very careful start of a process to remove civilians out of harm's way in order to pave the way for a ground offensive to remove the last Hamas battalions. But of course, there's another game going on as well, which is the Israelis are trying to still reach a ceasefire agreement that works for all sides with Hamas, which will, of course, end up with the releasing some of the civilian hostages who Hamas took on October the 7th. So part of what Israel's doing is playing a game of brinkmanship, saying to Hamas, look, we'll go in, but your time is running out, but we're doing this in a slow way so that if you want to reconsider and actually come up with a decent ceasefire offer along the lines that we've already offered, which will lead to a pause in the fighting, considerable pause, humanitarian aid coming into the north of Gaza, and the release of hostages, you can still do so. So they're giving Hamas every opportunity to avoid this final assault, and the ball is really in Hamas's court for what it really wants to do now. What you're finding is that there are estimated to be 4 Hamas battalions left in Rafah already. And obviously, Hamas is not going to give up without a final firefight here. So, what the Israelis are concerned about is, of course, the ability of Hamas to melt away within the population or to try and use a tunnel maybe to flee to other parts of Gaza in order to reappear in this sort of conflict. There is, of course, also an argument that Hamas might disappear over the border into Egypt. Well, frankly, that is an end to the conflict. If Hamas decides it's over, it's fleeing, as it were, that does end the conflict in one way. And what the Israelis want to be doing is increasing the pressure on Hamas to make a decision to fight and die, frankly, or to flee and live. But either way will end, of course, with Gaza being free of Hamas control. And that gives, of course, the people of Gaza, let alone the Palestinians as a whole, and the Israeli-Palestinian debate, a whole new dimension. A Gaza free of Hamas is a Gaza that can play a part in a two-state solution, in a full reconstruction, and which will ultimately be a benefit to all people in the region, whether they are Palestinians or Israelis. The hostages are retrieved, that obviously resolves one part of the conflict, which is, of course, recovering those who were kidnapped on October the 7th. But it won't end the conflict until Hamas is removed. That's the reality of the situation. Leaving Hamas in charge after its heinous crimes against Palestinian people, let alone Israelis, would be a huge mistake at this point, given they are this close to being extinguished as a force. So the hostage bit is important, of course, because Israelis want to recover them, and undoubtedly Israeli forces are going to be trying to locate hostages who they believe will still be in the Rafah area, but it may well be the case that that Hamas will kill them or something happens along the way. It's a terrible, terrible, obviously, situation for the Israelis to face. It's one of the reasons the Israelis are being careful as they go along, not simply to minimize Palestinian civilian casualties. It's also about trying not to ensure that Israeli hostages are caught up in any firefights as well. But look, the reality is, sadly, we keep on hearing day after day that hostages we thought might be alive are now being discovered dead. So the number is diminishing quite rapidly on this score. And I think the best guarantee for the hostages to be freed is for the Israelis to finish this operation, to be able to control essentially all of Gaza, and then to be able to locate or persuade whoever's holding them to let them go at this point, given the fight's over.